Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How's everyone doing today? Welcome back. Hope you had a good long weekend. We're going to get started with our lesson for today. We are starting chapter 9. That means we are moving on from chapter 8. So hopefully you guys did pretty well. By now, you should have done your exponent review, check, and reflect. I really hope that you did fairly well on that. That is kind of all we're addressing of that topic right now. And yet in high school, that's going to be something you're really going to hit hard. So please make sure that you kind of review those concepts. If you did not do very well, please make sure you let me know. Now, just giving you some heads up here, as we're working on this chapter, we are going to be doing several worksheets now recently. This topic that we're going into some geometry, and that's going to be a little different than a lot of things we've been doing recently. So for some of you, that might be a welcome relief. For some of you, that might be kind of challenging. Um, Today, we're going to be doing a lot of definitions and terms and concepts that you need to kind of practice and review. And so you might want to pause and restart the video, or just take a break or rewind the video, just to make sure that you understand the things that we're doing here. Okay. I do hope you enjoyed our video of the week. I know it's not Monday, but I just figured it. Why not? So hope you enjoyed it. He's a pretty funny guy. Okay, so your homework today is a practice worksheet. Now here's the choice. If you have a printer, it would be awesome to just print it out. That'd be the easiest way to do your homework and just take care of it that way. If you do not have a printer, you got two options. Option number one is just bring it up on the screen and just do it on a separate piece of paper from what you see on the screen. You do not need to have it printed to do it correctly and to get it done. So you can just do that. The other option is, if you want to, let me know and I can maybe see about making handouts, a packet of handouts that I can leave at the office, and then you can pick them up at the office at the beginning of the week, and that would give you the work for the week. But that's kind of just if you need it. If you need it, let me know. That's great. If you don't, if you want to just print it off, or if you want to look on the screen and write it off the screen, you can do that as well. Okay. All right. Well, let's get started here today. So here we go. Like I mentioned before, we're going to be doing a lot of just definitions. And so you do need to have a separate line piece of paper, and you need to write a lot of this stuff down. You need to write it down, because it's going to be very helpful to look at later on. And just to make sure, I mean, you look at the first one and it's parallel lines, and you're like, I know how to do that, no problem. But there's a lot of specific things that we need to address when you do that. Okay, so please go ahead on your paper, write down parallel lines. Okay. Now, what are parallel lines? Most of you should feel pretty confident with it. Parallel lines, though, have a couple specific things we need to address. Number one, lines that do not intersect, lines that keep going forever, and will never cross. If we do extend those lines, it'll just keep going and never cross. A lot of people talk about railroad tracks, and that's very similar to it. But they're also represented with arrowheads. Here's what I mean by that. Here are two lines. Now, if I said they were parallel, like if the problem said these two lines are parallel, then that's fine. But if they don't, I look at those lines, I'm like, man, that looks parallel. They are they? Technically, they're not. For them to be parallel, I do need to have. Oh, I need to get my pen going here. I need to have a couple arrowheads. Now, that would look something like the following. It would look like this. Boom, boom, and boom, boom. So somewhere on the lines, I should have a pair of arrowheads like that, just to reference that they're parallel. But if they have those, then you can assume they're parallel. If they don't, you can't assume it unless it's said. So please make sure you write that down. Okay. Let's go to the next one. How about perpendicular lines? Now, before I show you, why don't you go ahead and draw me a sketch of what perpendicular lines should be like, and we'll see if you're right. Well, perpendicular lines, write those down. Make sure you spell that correctly. Okay. Lines that meet at a right angle. Right angles are indicated by a small box. So you look at that right there and you're like, oh, those lines are perpendicular because they create a right angle. And again, it looks very similar, but we do need to have that just to make sure we know that they really are perpendicular. But two lines cross, they make a right angle. They are perpendicular lines. Okay, cool. Now, here's where the definitions get a little trickier. And some of these parallel, perpendicular, hopefully you've heard those. Vertical angles, and what are they? Well, vertical angles are going to look like that. Well, like the following. Let me go ahead and show you here. Look at that right there. You see those right there? Now, here's the weird thing. Vertical angles, you can automatically assume, oh, well, one's right above the other. That's not always the case. Vertical angles are opposite angles formed by two lines. Now, what are the examples here? They do share a common vertex. Now, vertex is a corner point. Well, and you're like, look at those, and you're like, all four of them share a common vertex. Yes, but they're opposite angles. So, for example, one is vertical with 3. So 1 and 3 are vertical angles. 1 and 3. Is that the only set? Actually, it's not. There is another pair of angles that are also vertical angles, and that would be 2 and 4. 2 and 4. Now look at 1 and 3 and 2 and 4. What can you kind of make out? What do you think when you look at those, what kind of ideas do you think about their size? What do you look at that? Well, here's the thing. Ready? Vertical angles are congruent or equal. Always. Any two lines, straight, they have to be straight, not curves. Any two lines that intersect will always create two pairs of vertical angles, and those two angles will always be congruent. So those two, write down 1 and 3, 2 and 4. Draw this picture, please, and make sure you put the numbers in the right spot. And go ahead and mark 1 and 3, 2 and 4, and make sure you say they are got to get under my picture here. Congruent. Okay. It's really important to know. Vertical angles, not diagonal, vertical. Okay. Up and down doesn't mean anything here. It just means angles that are across from each other when you connect two lines. Okay. Next one, adjacent angles. Now, adjacent angles, well, what does adjacent mean? Anyone know what adjacent means? Well, adjacent means next to each other. So adjacent angles are angles that are next to each other. And you're like, that's really weird. They share a common vertex and a common side. So right here, look at, again, vertex is a point and side is a side of the angle. So let's look at some angles that are adjacent. 1 and 1 and 2. But also 2 and, well, 2 and 3. And 3 and 4. And then 4 and 1. All of those are adjacent because like 2 and 3, they share this side right here and this vertex, okay? They have to be side by side. They have to be sharing an angle, okay? Now, these, there's nothing particular as far as them being congruent or anything like that. Just kind of have to know when they mean adjacent, they just mean side by side. Easy enough? Again, draw this shape, please, with those numbers, and please make sure you write these numbers down. But if you don't draw the shape, then those numbers mean nothing, okay? So make sure you have that. You need to pause the video to do it, but write that down. Not too many more, just 2 more, okay? Complementary angles. Now, you should be pretty familiar with these. We have addressed these a little bit here. Complementary angles are, well, I'll give you a hint. Their angles add up to something. Is it 180 or is it 90? Well, we're going to address next is supplementary angles, and you know it's going to be the other one. So let's say complementary should add up to 90 degrees. There are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. Now, if they are adjacent, they form a right triangle. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, here, these two angles, this angle, are complementary because together they make a right angle. Now, these two are complementary as well because 65 plus 25 is 90, but technically they're not next to each other, so they don't really form a right angle. They just would add up to get 90 degrees, and both of that is okay. So again, write this down. Supplementary means they add up to 180 degrees. Okay, and if adjacent, they make a straight line. So again, these two angles right here, x and y, are supplementary, and together they make a straight angle or a straight line. But these two are supplementary as well because 110 plus 70 is 180. But technically, if they're not adjacent, then it's not really a straight line. They're just two angles that add up to 180. Okay. Now, how can you remember complementary and supplementary? The best clue I have is just look at them and think of them alphabetically. Which one comes first alphabetically? Complementary. Supplementary comes later. So complementary is a smaller 90 degree. Supplementary is later 180 degrees. Okay. All right. That's it for definitions. That was a lot of definitions. And I want to make sure that you have all of them down. So if you need to backtrack, please. But please make sure you have these all written down on a piece of paper just so you can look back at that information. You're going to need to know it for sure. Okay. Now let's practice a couple problems here. Okay. For example, if I told you, tell me the degrees of those numbers, could you do it? Or of those angles? Well, all I know is that angle 3 is 76 degrees. Now, technically, I should have a little circle here, and I don't, but 76 degrees. Now, if I know 76 degrees, what is angle 1? Well, if you remember, first of all, angle 3 and angle 1, what is a name for them? They are vertical angles, okay? Vertical angles. And vertical angles, remember what we said? If not, look at your notes. Vertical angles are congruent. Therefore, this would be 76 degrees as well, okay? But what about this? What if I said angle 3 is 76 degrees and angle 4 is what? Ooh, when you look at that. Now, here's the thing. I want you to look at these two and look at these two together. And what can you tell me about both of those together? Well, those two are supplementary. These two angles are supplementary, okay? And which means they add up to 180 degrees. So if this one's 76, that means this one here must be 104, because 104 plus 76 is 180 degrees. Okay, so this next, your homework today, and what we're doing is kind of like a set of puzzles that you're going to try to figure out by kind of looking at the definitions and following the definitions. Let's try one more. Okay, one more before we're done. And it looks like this. Find the measurement of each angle. Now, we're going to throw some numbers and some algebra and some other stuff into there, okay? So look at these two angles. What can you tell me about them? In fact, I want you to try to find the measurement of these angles on your own. After you're done, unpause this and we'll check it and see if you got it right. Okay, let's see. And if you didn't know, if you got stuck, that's okay. Let's talk about it here. These two angles, what do we notice about them? That one and that one. Well, together they make a straight line, which means they are supplementary angles. And what's true about supplementary angles? They add to get you 180 degrees. So this plus this gives you 180. So let's write that down. X plus 55 plus 2x plus 35 equal 180. And then I just solve algebraically. Now, since this is all addition, I can use what property? Is it what is it? It is the commutative property, and just say I'm going to order or I'm sorry, I'm going to add them up in whatever order I want. Okay. Now I could move them. I'm sorry, that would be the commutative property, or I could just say I'm going to add them in whatever order. So 2x plus x would be 3x. That would be the associative property, and then 55 plus 35. 55 plus 35 is 90 equals 180. Then I subtract 90 from both sides, and I get 3x equals 90, divide by 3, and x equals 30. Now, I am not done, because that just tells me what x is. I now need to plug x into these problems here and actually solve them. So x plus 55, 30 plus 55 would be 85. And 2x plus 35, let's see, 2 times 30 plus 35. Okay, 2 times 30 is 60. And 60 plus 35 is 95. So this one here is 95. And 95 plus, degrees and degrees. 95 plus 85 is 180 degrees, which means they are supplementary. So, like I said, our homework today is going to be kind of like some puzzles, kind of putting these all together and just kind of analyzing the information and seeing if you can match up what we did. Okay, so hopefully you got those definitions down. Your homework is this worksheet that I'm going to give you. Okay, so tomorrow I will give you the answers. You can check them and you can see how you did. Hopefully you did pretty well. Tomorrow we're going to build on this. Okay, all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's it for today. So hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you later.